podcast. Today we will talk about the World War One.
And so then we're going to split into three different parts. So me and Katherine, we will talk about what the causes and what led up to World War One. Then we'll have WaWa and Kowpan tell us about how brutal World War One was and why it was so horrible to fight in. And then we'll have Lucia and Medy tell us what the outcome of World War One was and what happened to all of the nations that fought in it. So, Katherine, what would you say were some main causes of what led up to World War One? Because we all know, most people think it was very simple. Some archduke got shot, but it's more complicated than that.
Well, I think that the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was just like a trigger for World War One. European tensions have been ongoing for almost like within less than 100 years. Yeah, for example, the Franco-Prussian War, and especially since the unification of Italy and Germany, countries like Germany and Italy started to gain much more power than before. And the thing is that it was a time of imperialism, right? So many people wanted to get colonies. And the countries with the most colonies were the British, of course, and the French. But the thing is that Germany and Italy also wanted these colonies. But how are they really going to occupy the colonies if they're already occupied by France and Britain? So, yeah.
And the problem too with their geography, like France and Britain could basically cut off Germany through the English Channel, and the French could cut off the Italians through the Gibraltar Strait. And also the British would eventually control Egypt too, which gave them control over the Suez Canal. So they could basically restrict the other Europeans.
Yes. So the more colonies, like Britain, how they lived off of their colonies. More colonies at that time meant much bigger economy, a greater economy. And that's what all countries want. So Germany and Italy and some other countries too had the desire to kind of occupy those countries. And how do we occupy those countries? By going on war against France and Britain. And that was one of the reasons. And I think the other reason, besides colonialism and wanting to gain more power and land, and also more colonies meant more political power. And of course, everyone wants more political power. So besides that, I think the other part that played a big role was nationalism. So what do you think about nationalism?
Nationalism, it's a very powerful tool because it unites certain people groups and basically puts in the idea that they are the best or their country is the best, and they look down upon other people. And especially this was a big problem for countries or empires like Austria-Hungary, where they had multiple people from different ethnicities. They had Hungarians, Polish, Czechs, Romanians, Serbians especially, the most important. Just basically the Balkans, and we know how the Balkans are today.
Yes. So I feel like if the former cause we just talked about, like colonialism and wanting political power and wanting economic prosperity, is much more of a expedient reason, like much more based on money, much more what am I going to get, much more of a business mindset. I think nationalism is what strikes the people's hearts at the most. Just how people think about something. It's like their perspective. So since nationalism arose, people had a sense of pride in their nation, like, oh, our nation, my nation. And the Serbians and the smaller ethnicities in Austria-Hungary started to feel like, oh, we need an independent nation of our own. We don't want to be occupied by Austria-Hungarians, these occupiers, but we want a separate nation of our own, our independent nation. And that caused a lot of stirrings and revolutions and rebellions and a lot of political tension.
I would also say technology also kind of fueled their desire for war, because the last time that they had a major war in Europe would be the Franco-Prussian War, and in that one France lost really, really badly against the Prussians, who then became the Germans. So that kind of put that hatred between both groups, where France wants to kind of regain their honor from losing it, and Germany just has beef with France. And they helped each other in another war, which was the Opium Wars, or not Opium Wars, but the Boxer Rebellion in China in the 1900s. But that was more of the Europeans were all helping each other, fighting against a little less undeveloped technologically undeveloped China, who was also on the brink of collapse.
Yes, Qing Dynasty was very much in the verge of collapse.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, I feel like so imperialism, like wanting more political power and wanting more money, wanting more land. You know, if people want more things, they always conquer another nation. So that also played a role. And as we talked about national sense of pride in the nation, a sense of pride, sense of feeling that our nation has to be independent and separate. That caused a lot of tensions, especially multi-ethnicity cultures like Austria-Hungary. And Austria-Hungary, of course, as the occupiers, do not want to let go of Serbia or the Balkans. And then it's just talked about advancement of technology. Now, everyone wanted to try to test out their new weapons that they created in 100 years. So Europe hadn't had a major war since the Napoleonic War, and the Napoleonic War was in the 1810s. So almost 100 years. That's why it's called Belle Epoque, also in Europe. It is when they say it's a time of prosperity, of great peace, and that lasted until 1914. And there was a lot of advancement in technology and art and science, and yeah. But since there wasn't war for so many years, people just wanted to fight.
Yeah. It also kind of leads into the ideas of like these ideas called the 10 deadly ideas of war. Some of them include like Pax Romana, fascism. And so some of the things we've just talked about too are also in them, like interest, political power. You want more power over the other countries around you. You want more influence. And so then I think for World War I, it was one of the biggest would be political power, because you want power over your neighboring countries, because this allows you to kind of get the other stuff. Also interest. Colonies are a very big interest to the Europeans. And also fascism too. See, fascism is often associated with Nazis of World War II, but fascism was an idea that existed before Hitler took it and made it kind of this hated ideology. The idea of fascism back then for those Europeans was just do whatever it takes to get what you need.
Yeah, so just the causes of World War I was just not this one cause. It's not simply that, and also alliances. Yeah, before I talk about it, like the reason why it turned out to a major war. So there has been European political tensions throughout 100-year span. But the reason why it turned out to a major war is because of the alliances. Since Serbia was alliances with Russia, and Russia was alliances with
France.
and then France was alliance with
Kind of like hop.
Britain. So that caused major other countries to start joining in and become a major world war, not a regional European little war. Yeah, especially all their colonies getting involved.
Also, like before World War I, Italy, Austria, Hungary, and Germany were pretty good friends, but Austria, Hungary, and Germany kind of had a falling out, you could say, with Italy. So then Italy does not like them anymore. They don't like Italy, so Italy joins on the side of France, Russia, and Britain because they want to take land from Austria, Hungary, and expand their own power. The Ottomans too are at conflict with Russia, especially after like the Crimean Wars, and so they want to take land from Russia. So they end up joining Germany, and same with Hungary. They want more land, so they join Germany.
Yeah, really just the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was a trigger to World War I. There was already ongoing tensions caused by different types of causes like political power, interest, and nationalism and alliances. And so, when was Archduke Ferdinand assassinated?
It was 1914
Yes.
in Sarajevo.
Yes.
Sarajevo.
And that marked, and then who declared war on who at the first place?
Well, Austria-Hungary demanded an ultimatum, thinking that the Serbian government had something to do with it, though they kept denying it, and even up until today, no one knows if they did. But Serbia, of course, rejected it, and so then Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia, and then Germany kind of offers Austria a blank check, which says, we will do whatever you like. We will give you whatever you need. We will help you, no matter what the cost is. So then Russia declares war on Austria, and France declares war on Austria, and Germany declares war on them, so they declare war on Germany. And then Britain sort of gets involved after Germany invades Belgium to get around France's defenses. And so Britain doesn't like that, and so they declare war on Germany.
Yes, because Germany was invading a neutral country, which is not allowed, at least politically. Yeah, so could you guys talk about like how the war, like important battles and how the war proceeded?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can start off with trench warfare. Let's talk about. And because trench warfare, it also leads to like the brutality of World War One too.
So during World War II, soldiers,
World War One.
World War One, sorry. So soldiers would like dig underground when they fight war, and they would kind of make a trench, and they would live in the trench, in which they live there, and so they live in mud and like dirt all the time, and it's all infested with rats. So this shows their living conditions, and also that they have limited source of food because they're invading another country, and so sometimes they get sick because they use their energy. They use their energy to fight war, but they don't lack important nutrition.
Yeah, any fighting style that you guys want to talk about? Like how did they fight? How was the battles fought? Like different from the 19th century.
Like, what were the kind of major battles that shaped the war?
It's more like trench warfare that we research, right? And do you have any more to add on?
I know some battles, like Battle of Verdun.
How about Battle of Somme?
Battle of Somme, that was a pretty important battle.
Yeah.
That was, I think, in response to the French Battle of Verdun, where the Germans were about to take
With
Paris.
France, right?
Yeah. Germans were about to take Paris, and then the French, of course, don't want to lose Paris. So they sent like, it feels like 300,000 men died in that battle.
Yeah, they proceeded a little bit, and then like cause it's trench warfare, how they dig holes basically, dig holes and kind of like stay there and then go in the line of victory and start shooting everyone. It was a very ineffective way of fighting, and the line moved like 10 centimeters per time, like the border line. It was just that bad. And but the thing was that the people who were killed were massive, right?
Yeah.
Like compared to how much land was gained, it was ridiculous.
Especially with the mentality of these European countries, technology had developed. They went from slow firing muskets and cannons to artillery and machine guns. And so in the start of the war, actually, these Europeans went in an old school mentality with old school equipment. They had like new guns and stuff, but they went in not wearing proper armor, having boots or hats, or being brightly colored like the French were. And then they would also still try to fight Napoleonic line battle, but of course they had to change that after the machine guns and the artillery started cutting them down.
Yeah, because like technology is one of the reason why World War One is brutal, because people were like kind of trying to use new equipment without knowing like how powerful it is. So that's why it kills like massive of people too.
Yeah, like any battle you particularly thought it was interesting, like maybe like one battle you thought it was particularly interesting, like you just mentioned the Battle of Somme.
You have any?
I would say the Battle of Somme. Yes, because it took place after the Battle of Verdun.
Yeah, because the Battle of Verdun took place since like February up to December, right? It's like
Who fought in the Battle of Verdun?
Verdun is French and German,
France, and
right?
Germany.
That German like take Paris.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, yes, that one.
Also, like, you know, what World War One was probably most famous for with their chemical warfare. The Germans actually used it first, and then the Allies used it back, which made it even worse to fight in the war.
Yeah.
Because not only are you trying to go through land filled with bullets, but now you're breathing in.
Didn't they like this like illegalize like air raid bombings like in World War One, or was it in World War Two?
They did say like you mean
But-
against civilians?
Yeah, against civilians, right?
They did say that, but
Yeah,
the
but
Germans went ahead.
Yeah,
and
it
did
just didn't work out. Yeah. Yeah, there was one time when Germany tried to, air bombing. Well, Germany always air bombs civilians, but I mean it was every country too, so
Yeah.
a lot of air bombing in there.
What about the Eastern Front too? Because the Eastern Front, I heard, is more brutal than the Western. Especially because it's Russia.
This is right. Yeah, the Eastern Front was fought between.
Russia.
Eastern Front.
Yes, the Eastern Front. You have the Western Front, which is France and Germany, and you have the Eastern Front, which
Which
is
was Russian.
Russia versus Germany.
Yeah.
Yes, and always it's very brutal.
And the Germans actually did better on that side because, of course, Russia was having their revolution.
But the thing was that Germany was at first surrounded by two, like it was, sandwiched by France and Russia, which is always not a good strategy in battle. That's why Bismarck, the latter, was it the guy, the German leader, Otto Bismarck, really desperately wanted to make an alliance with Russia.
Yeah.
Like Austria-Hungary, didn't work out, and then Russia became friends with France. Yeah, but
Honestly, Kaiser Wilhelm was kind of stupid because
Kaiser
Bismarck
was
realized
just
Bismarck realized they needed allies, and so they had a pretty good relationship with Britain and an okay relationship with Russia. Especially because the funny thing is that World War I is known by a lesser known name, which was like the Cousin War, because the British king, the German king, and the Russian Tsar was all cousins
Yeah.
under Queen Victoria. So.
and they all look similar. I always
Yeah.
get confused by which one is which.
And so, Kaiser Wilhelm was kind of stupid because he ruined their relationship with Britain, and then he kind of increased tensions with Russia.
Yes.
What about other fronts like the Ottomans, Austria-Hungary, Serbia?
The war.
Yep.
Because there were other fronts. There was World War I, so there were lots of fronts in the
The
world.
most well-known is the Western one. Like 90% of all World War I movies are made on the Western.
Western Front.
All quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah.
1917.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, Serbia did lose, but they didn't go down without a fight.
Yes. So how did Germany? So who lost in World War One?
So in World War One, Germany lost, and they signed. Basically, the agreement was the Treaty of Versailles. So I think they signed it in.
On June 28th in 1919, I think it was. It's a peace document that,
Oh,
yeah.
they signed it in 1919. The battle ended in 1918, so maybe it took time for them to
Yeah,
sign
I
it.
think it did.
So the Treaty of Versailles, when it was signed, it was the officially end of World War One, and
It imposed a lot of harsh terms on Germany.
yes,
They had to pay $800 billion. They
Yes.
lost lots of
Wow.
territories.
Wow.
And like the British and I think the French were able to come into Germany and like take their colonies and things like that.
Yeah. I think it was more just like go in there and kind of occupy an area for a bit.
and they also have to disarm too. They can only have like 1,000 armed.
100,000 troops in their armies.
And they also lost like the land and overseas colonies, and there was one land that they lost, which like there's a lot of industry going on, right?
The Rhine land.
Yes.
Yeah. So this just affected their military a lot as well. They weren't able to have an air force. They weren't able to use tanks and big machinery, things like that.
800 billion back then
So,
would be.
I don't know.
It's
Trillion.
crazy amount. So basically, it was almost to put Germany, beat up Germany and put it to the
Yeah.
ground.
Yeah.
It was that tactic. It's
So-
that serious. Army, don't really look at military. No more military stuff.
Yeah.
That means your political part. That means your military strength decreases.
Yeah.
Economically, you need to pay
Yeah.
that much money for that and that much. You
That's
can't
like
do
a
any of
lot.
that. So economically, also very declined. They wanted Germany to kind of decline, basically.
Yeah.
Beat up Germany. That was the tactic.
The whole thing, like, it humiliated Germany, and that was like kind of what caused the anger, and that really
Yeah.
is what led to Hitler's rise and what led to World War
But
II.
I guess in defense of allies, I don't think it was right. But they thought that how they thought there was this clear bad guy, Germany. So they thought in their mind thought that if they just beat down Germany, that means another war is probably not going to happen because now Germany is weak. So which kind of country will get initiate a new war? Except.
Funny thing is, we haven't talked about a good old friend throughout the entire war, America.
Oh yes, totally
America-
forgot about it.
The funny thing is that America in the beginning of the war was actually pretty like pro-Germany, like they wanted Germany to win the war.
Yeah.
But when Germany invaded Belgium, they started doing
Like,
a bunch of war crimes. And so then all of the Germans in America started kind of going like, do we really support Germany? And then Germany got America involved when they, one, sank the Lusitania, which had like 119 American civilians. And then two, sent a telegram to Mexico telling them to attack America. So that they kind of shot themselves in the foot there.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that after the war, during the Treaty of Versailles, I think America actually told the Allies to not put such harsh conditions on the Germans because they kind of almost predicted that it would not end out really well.
Yeah, but America, I would say, almost benefited from both of
Yeah.
the wars
Yeah.
because they could sell their, military weaponry and food and a lot of things.
They actually, I think that was when they sort of, Great Britain shifted from being the number one economy
Yes.
to now America, because now everyone's
Yeah.
buying from America.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone's fighting in Europe. Then America, which is very far away from Europe, it's
Yeah.
kind of like they could send troops if they want, but mostly they were aiding with a lot of resources instead of troops.
And
They're not UNICEF. They're not gonna give it for free.
And most of their neighbors aren't really strong enough to
Yeah.
fight them. Like
Yeah.
in Canada, there was probably like
Canada doesn't
few
doesn't
million
want to
dollars.
fight. Canada doesn't want to fight probably, and Mexico probably not. South America busy on their own too. Yeah.
so. It was kind of just the only
America?
one who really benefited the most from this was
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why America also had a roaring 20s and like economic prosperity. Though it hit like depression later on.
America actually did loan money to Germany to help ease their burden, but then of course you have the Great Depression, and so America
Had
is
to give it
demanding
back,
their
yeah,
money.
and Germany's getting worse.
Yeah.
What do you think would have been an alternative to the Treaty of Versailles? Thinking of it, like, if think of it as after the war, how should the Allies have treated like France, Britain, and Italy switched sides, but let's not talk about it. And America should have treated Germany. What do you guys think? Like,
Well, obviously paying 800 billion. I
probably
mean,
not.
yeah.
Right?
it makes a bit more sense if it was like the amount of money that all of the countries spent to use in the war, but if they're asking for more afterwards too, like
It's
lots
different.
more, not just like a few reparations, then that's kind of like you're doing it with the intent to make sure Germany's never powerful again.
I feel like they should just like ask for the money to go back, like the amount of the money that they need to like fix all.
Rebuild, yeah.
But I feel like they are just want all the money and like kind of put Germany down, like trying to make Germany decline and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like after the war, if I was part of the Allies, the biggest struggle I would face is how am I gonna prevent this thing from happening again? It was World War I, a lot of things were lost. Europe almost went broke, especially in Germany. Went broke and they went more broke because of the Treaty of Versailles. But I think, I think the problem was the approach. The approach that if we just beat up one nation, another war is probably not going to happen. When war is between many nations,
Yeah.
not just one individual nation. And they thought of it as this one individual nation going crazy and starting to, make a new war, which kind of did happen in World War II, but that was the consequences of their approach in World War I, I would say.
And this is why none of us can become politicians. We're all too nice with the treaties.
Yes,
Oh,
I
just
know.
pay me back.
Pay me back, pay me my debt tomorrow.
Actually, don't pay me back at all. It's fine. I'm
Yeah,
I'm
fine,
nice.
fine,
Yeah.
it's fine, yeah.
Anyways, that's why this was called the War to End All Wars, because this was like the biggest European war, not counting all those Chinese rebellions. those killed like what, 30 to 40 million people on average?
Per day, it was
Yeah.
like
Anyways,
it's crazy.
so yeah. It's called the War to End All Wars because they actually truly believed that it would be like the final major
Yeah.
war.
And it didn't gain much. That much people lost. That much people killed, and that was what that much civilians suffered. And
How many killed people?
Yeah.
It was like 15 to 20 million.
How many people died in World War I?
It was like 15 to 20 million.
I mean, but I wouldn't say it was worth
Around
40. Not, I would say
40
any
million.
war is not worth the people dying.
That's a lot.
40 million.
40
40
million.
million.
And we're not
Wow,
counting
that's more than what I've
That's
heard.
in
I've heard
counting
Yeah.
civilians as well.
Yeah.
I think it'll be-
And there's also civilian suffers during the war.
Yes, so and a lot of people who didn't even choose their government had to endure the consequences of what their government made.
Yeah.
That is the tragedy of it.
Another big effect was that it collapsed like 80% of the existing empires. The Russians collapsed, the Germans, the Austrian-Hungarians, the Ottomans. The Ottomans were a big one because they had been in power for a very long time, but now they're gone. Yeah. But it was kind of coming. All of the Europeans called them the sick man of Europe because they were slowly dying.
Yeah, sick man.
That
Why
was their
does it
that was
match
their name.
so much? Yeah, it wasn't worth it. That's what I would say. World War One, neither was World War Two ever worth it. That much people dying, those many people suffering, especially innocent people.
There were a few like a little bit of wholesome moments. The first year on Christmas, they had a Christmas truce.
But
Not everywhere, but in some areas. And what?
they suffer together.
Yep. And I think it ended because you know how like the Germans have those spiked hats.
Yeah.
It ended because someone kicked the ball high and so it landed on some German guy's hat, so the ball got deflated. Yeah. There was another story. It was like two Germans ran across the French line because they wanted a Christmas tree, and then they successfully managed to cut it down while there were a bunch of French soldiers partying. And then they realized they were missing wine. Yeah. So they were gonna steal some wine from a French cellar, but then a French soldier just comes out all drunk, invites the German soldiers in, and so they just have a party.
What?
So
Yeah.
this
So
and then
how they
they
became-
yeah.
Yeah, it just tells us that these people weren't too much different from us. You know, like these are just the same people that probably we would see at this age to also they're like dead 100 years ago.
More about
But
like the politics.
and how war just ruins these lives of these innocent people, and it just helps us light that it's not something so far away. It's not like we're cut up from this World War One, World War Two, but we're also kind of living inside that history too.
It also shows the mentality of the war. Most of the soldiers did not want to fight,
Yeah.
and a lot of them actually wanted to be like friends. But of course, the politicians, the old
Yeah.
men.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You were just born 10 kilometers away from France or 10 kilometers away from the border, and you have to fight crazy, like fight to the death
Yeah.
and kill each other.
They probably get scared.
Yeah. And so World War One, lasting from 1914 to 1918, but known to them at that time as the Great War, because obviously they didn't predict that World War II was gonna happen. Was not like it's a dark moment in human history, and like what most countries gained from it was not a lot, except for America, they gained a lot.
Yeah.
And so yeah, World War One. Thank you guys for coming and listening in to our World War One Great War podcast. We'll see you next time.